I will now give the floor to Claire Charby, Head of Unit of Regional Attractiveness at the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions, and Cities here at the OECD. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you all participants who are connected today for this fifth web seminar on regional attractiveness. So it's an important moment for us. We worked a lot, and I think there is a presentation, very brief presentation to be shared now. So we worked a lot in collaboration with Professor Andres Rodriguez-Posse, and thanks to the support of the EU. So we have obtained results, and I will briefly present today, but we invite you to consult the report. So just to make it short, we propose a new methodology to assess regional attractiveness, building on more than 50 indicators to provide a comprehensive image in comparison with other regions of regional attractiveness. We implemented it with more than 30 regions, and recently with 15 European ones. To whom we provided the regional attractiveness compasses. So these are very, very practical tools to identify their strengths and weaknesses. We also delivered case studies, and in these case studies, policy and governance analysis, as well as consideration for policy making, are provided. Next slide, please. So we do not, all this work is not just to, analyze specific cases of region. We also work on the database that we created to try to extract causalities, observation, to understand what are the key drivers for regional attractiveness. And what we have identified are the following levers. If you want to attract investors, apparently they pay a lot of attention to infrastructure, download speed, rail performance, access to flights. In addition to the presence of higher education institutions, they pay attention to skills in addition to infrastructure. But if they pay attention to skill, they need talent. So attracting talent is also a condition to attract investors. What are the levers that can attract talent? Again, broadband internet access, the presence of international students, so the fact that there is a diversity in a place, but something which is also very important nowadays, an affordable housing. So elements of well-being also are key to make places attractive ones. And last but not least, what we have observed is that visitors, they seem to privilege regions with creative industry and with environmental quality. So it's a very strong indicators that visitors seem to pay more and more attention to the environment dimension of the place they want to visit. All these things are nice results, we are happy with them. However, all regions and places, they cannot suddenly build an international airport or obtain an internationally reputed university. So it is important because what we recently observed in the regional outlook produced recently by the OECD is that territorial inequalities, they persist. So if you want to address these disparities, you need to have the good action to make your place more attractive than in the past. How is it possible to transform your place in an attractive one with or without the key initial assets and the easiest geographic situation? It is precisely one of the questions we want to address today with you. And I want to underline the last point, the importance of multi-stakeholders governance. Regional attractiveness is not just one policy, it's a system. And as a system, it involves multiple stakeholders at different levels from different policy areas, private or public or non-governmental. So all these practitioners need to work in a coordinated way. And it's important today to focus on, regional attractiveness in practice. And this is the ambition we have, benefiting from the variety of experience sharing we will hear today. How we will organize this dialogue with practitioners. Our discussion is organized in 3 short sessions, considering trade-offs in attracting first talent. It seems to be really the key lever for all other type of attractiveness. Investors in the second subsession, and visitors in an inclusive and sustainable way. Please note that at the end of each session, we will have a short interactive moment that will allow to answer your questions, the one that you can indicate in the Q&A function of your screen. And we will also invite the audience, the speakers, to participate in a very brief poll. So normally you must also have received a survey to be filled online. It will take only 5 minutes. And really, please do it, because your insights and perspective are invaluable to us, and they will play an essential role in our future work. So this web seminar will be moderated by Professor Andrés Rodriguez Posse, Princesa de Asturias professor, and Professor of Economic Geography in the London School of Economics. Dear Andrés, I'm very glad to give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Claire, and thank you very much to the OECD for inviting me. I think that Claire has indicated this, but I would recommend that you look at the Rethinking Regional Attractiveness in the new Global Environment Report, because it's actually a gem of a report that can help practitioners everywhere try to make their regions attractive. But what I'm going to try to introduce very, very briefly before I give the floor to everyone is that, as Claire has indicated, territorial disparities within our countries in many cases have grown, that there has been a concentration of economic activity and dynamism in certain parts, and other areas have been struggling. And this is a loss, a significant loss, because in many parts of our world that there's significant potential that remains untapped. And in order to tap into that potential and improve the quality of life of the people that live there by generating more and better quality employment in a more sustainable and more resilient way, we need to try to make the places where we live far more attractive. But of course, having any sort of policies like that implies significant trade-offs. What is it that you do and how do you balance? What are the tools that you have to implement? And I think that no one is better prepared than actually the practitioners that have to deal with this every single day. So what works and what doesn't work, and how can, let's say, institutions like the OECD or us in academia help in that respect in your task? And this is what we're going to be discussing. As Claire highlighted, we're going to start by looking at how do we attract talent and what are the implications of attracting talent. Then how do we attract investors? And then how do we attract visitors? So in this respect, I will ask different practitioners from all over the world to provide short insights, followed by a moderated discussion of questions from the floor. And please stick to 3 to 4 minutes for each speaker, because that's fundamental. So let's start with the first one, which is the whole idea of attracting talent. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring, I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Mari Boyen Meyer, who's a research fellow at Norregio in Norway, in which I'm going to ask, what is the better way to hear? For example, you have been working quite a lot on attracting youth. For those that are actually involved in attracting the youth to regions where sometimes for a long time they have seen the population age as a result of a brain drain and outward migration of the young. So Mari, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me today and for letting me also share these recommendations that our Gen Z panels has developed for us in this project that we've had. And it's called Gen Z Agency, Mobilizing Young People to Strengthen Nordic Rural Areas. So that is the geographical scope here. So the reason that why we were tasked with this project was because the Nordic region is aiming to become the world's most socially sustainable and integrated region by 2030. But many of the rural municipalities in the Nordic region is facing a demographic trend, as you say, which is characterized by an aging population, and that is because young people are relocating elsewhere, especially then in the age group 20 to 29 years, which is where the talent often is. And this leads to a less dynamic labour market, but also results in services that are not meeting the expectations of those who consider even moving there. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. And to achieve this Nordic vision, it is therefore essential to engage with the younger generation. You know, what is lacking in Nordic rural areas? What is needed for people to choose to settle there? What are their dreams? How can this be realised? So the goal of our project was to identify possible solutions for this. And this project then centered around a rural youth panel. Through co-creative workshops, we developed these recommendations. And there were 25 representatives in ages 18 to 25 participating. And they were from each of the countries and self-governing territories across the Nordic region. So quite a plethora of voices there. And there were in total 40 policy recommendations that they came up with. And I don't have time to talk to you about all of these today. But we do have some overarching points to share with you and to summarize these kind of 6 themes that we were working with, as well as one horizontal policy priority that we identified. So the first one is rural youth need accessible and efficient transport options. For their just green transition of the transport sector, affordable public transport, as well as locally adapted and multimodal transport options should be a priority. 2, rural youth need more affordable and diverse housing options to ensure that they can access attractive private and public housing, as well as tenure and ownership that fit their needs. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier about the affordable housing in this new report that you were talking about. 3, rural youth need accessible and dynamic education opportunity at all levels in their area, and want to know also how this education connects to their local labour markets. 4, rural youth need to see existing and potential opportunities in their local labour market, also by providing remote work options. And this also connects again back to rural housing issues and affordable housing. Let's see, and rural youth need to see then existing and potential need to have access to safe spaces and tools, also to be able to discuss mental and physical health as well. This is specifically for the people who already perhaps live there, which is particularly important in areas of high social control, conservative areas, etc., and also having then access to recreational arenas, because creating good memories as a young person is in a specific area is a really important way to also stay in that area. And finally, rural youth need funding for then revamping public meeting spaces as well, to create a stronger bond to the place. And then finally, across all of these, youth participation is super important, and they need to be met and reached on their own terms, using plain language and terms and their platforms as well, such as social media, for example, as well as feeling like they can take part in policy processes as valuable members of society. So these are some of the headlines of our recommendations summarized for you today, very much in brief. And I suggest that you check out our recommendations once they're out and they're being published on the 7th of November. That was what I wanted to share with you guys today.
Thank you very much, Mari. It was a nice overview. And now now that we have heard from the youth, let's stay on the Nordic countries and turn to Hannah, who works inside the relocation service of Piteå municipality in the north of Sweden, and is a municipality that aims to attract and retain new inhabitants. Hannah is the project management for population growth and EU, and at the business development department at Piteå municipality in Norrbotten, Sweden. So my question to you is, Hannah, could you please explain to us what are the attractiveness levers you promote to make your municipality an attractive place for individuals to settle? So is it housing support? Is it communication policies, etc.? What are the results of your efforts so far?
Right, thank you very much. Well, to put our work in context, so we're going from Norway to North Sweden, and North Sweden did become a very important hub for the European Union's Green Deal just some years before the pandemic. So that means basically the establishment of green industries that found North Sweden, for different reasons, to be perfect for big investments. As impressive and innovative as this is, a region with only 200,000 locals need to make tremendous capacity changes if you are supposed to welcome 100,000 new people in this vast but very dense population region. So the green shift, we know that it affects every sectors in our society. And that was the reason that we in Piteå municipality, we launched a cross-sectoral relocation service where the interests of all other sectors and target groups are being catered for. Now, for example, the business sector and the civil society and the locals, of course. So it hadn't been done before in North Sweden nor in Sweden, but we knew that it was crucial because when we spoke to people in Scandinavia, in Europe, few had heard about the green transition and about this new labor market in north of Sweden. So basically what we did is to have real estate actors, employers, associations, and the locals that are working together to ensure sustainable population growth. And this is merely done by national and international marketing and recruitment that is targeting the needs in Piteå. And we are offering hands-on job matching, both for the first individual, but also for their partners, which is very important, either job or education matching. But we are also offering supports for housing because we still have affordable houses and apartments in North Sweden. But I think the two main aspects in our relocation service is that we are aiming to integrate people into the society, into the social life, because that hasn't also been done before, because there were no connection between the locals and between the municipality, the business sector, and sadly enough, the civil society. And we're also aiming to make newcomers visible via different social platforms, because we also believe that moving to another country can be very anonymous, and you need to be shown, and your skills need to be shown in your new area. And what is had led to is actually a measurable greater relocation, where newcomers are telling us that they want to stay in Piteå thanks to the welcoming from our inclusive sectors. But it has also led to a focus shift from traditional tourism to the wish for a career change and a new way of living, because you can do that now in North Sweden, thanks to the green transition. And politically speaking, we now have 9 other municipalities in North Sweden that is also working with their own relocation services and their way of having people moving in to their municipalities. And all of us are working together for the same region, but we are doing it in our different ways because we have our cities' identities as the core in our relocation work. And I think that would be the main issue, to somehow target both inclusion and innovation at the same time.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And I think you and Mari have highlighted one of the main problems to attract talent, which is that of housing. And it's clear from surveys and from analysis that employers are the most concerned about this lack of talent. And they have put, especially in the field of housing, in place innovative solutions to attract and retain these people and lure them to the firms that they have there. So I'm going to turn now to François Roche, who is the head of sales at Virgile in France. And I'm going to ask that, can you tell us and can you share what Virgile's insights are on the importance of housing, and how do you help employers address the problem of housing shortages wherever you are? And if you can provide any data on the impact of the Virgile Talent Program on the staff attractiveness and retention, that would be more welcome. So if you can do it in 3 minutes, that will be also excellent. So François, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais faire de mon mieux pour tenir le plus court possible. Donc, ce qu'il faut savoir d'abord, c'est que Virgile Talent, c'est créé à l'initiative de Virgile, qui est une entreprise B2C à la base et qui a une conviction forte, qui est née d'une conviction que les jeunes ont de plus en plus de mal à accéder à la propriété, à la résidence principale. Aujourd'hui, en France, il suffit plus d'avoir un CDI et un bon salaire pour mettre un toit sur sa tête. Si vous voulez acheter un 40 mètres carrés à Marseille, il faut avoir 50 000 euros de revenus. Et pire que ça, si vous voulez avoir 40 mètres carrés à Paris, aujourd'hui, c'est 100 000 euros de revenus. Il faut savoir 100 000 euros de revenus en France, c'est le 10%, ça fait partie des 10% les plus riches. Donc, on a créé Virgile, qui est un système financier qui permet donc aux jeunes actifs de pouvoir débloquer 100 000 euros d'apport en échange d'une partie en capital de l'appartement. Pourquoi on a fait ça? Donc, vraiment avec cette conviction forte de pouvoir aider cette génération à devenir propriétaire. Ça fait 4 ans qu'on fait ça en B2C, ça marche très bien. On a accompagné plus de 10 000 acquéreurs, on a déployé 50 millions d'euros d'investissement dans des résidences principales et on s'est rendu compte que c'était aussi un problème d'employeur. On est face à des entreprises qui sont souvent démunies, face à des aides. Il y a un problème? Non. On est face à des entreprises qui sont souvent démunies devant les aides et les avantages qui sont donnés et on a créé ce produit talent pour les aider là-dedans. Donc, c'est une offre qui se décompose en 3 temps. L'accompagnement et le conseil. Donc là, on est vraiment votre meilleur ami pour l'achat de la résidence principale, votre oncle qui vous donne des conseils en immobilier. On apporte le courtage et le co-investissement. Donc, exactement comme un courtier, on viendrait faire la totalité du financement pour vos employés et on apporte ce co-investissement, donc cet apport supplémentaire pour vous permettre d'accéder à la résidence principale. Et enfin, on a un dernier levier qui s'appelle le prêt bonifié, qui est là carrément un moyen pour les entreprises de participer aux intérêts bancaires des prêts de résidence principale de leurs employés. Alors, autrefois, le logement de fonction, c'était un avantage quasiment présent partout. Ça a disparu au profit de certains avantages plus légers, entre guillemets, comme les tickets resto ou les salles de sport. Et en fait, on s'est rendu compte que pour le même prix, on pouvait avoir un réel impact sur la vie des gens, vraiment s'attaquer à la base de la pyramide de Maslow, donc s'attaquer au logement. Il faut savoir, en France, aujourd'hui, acheter sa résidence principale, c'est la première préoccupation de tous les Français de moins de 32 ans. Et ça, devant fonder une famille et devant monter son entreprise. On sait aussi que 74% des jeunes actifs pensent que leurs employeurs devraient les aider à accéder à la résidence principale et que 63% de ces personnes-là seraient prêts à changer d'entreprise pour bénéficier d'une telle aide. L'accès au logement, c'est un des besoins fondamentaux de l'être humain et le fait d'avoir un logement stable, c'est essentiel vraiment, et on le croit, pour un bien-être total psychologique et physique. Et en face de ça, communiquer sur son engagement pour l'accès à la stabilité financière, c'est un vrai argument palpable pour les entreprises aujourd'hui. On le voit, c'est pour ça qu'on a une telle traction. Nos clients entreprises, elles y voient donc un outil d'attractivité et de rétention salariale, puisque les employés qui sont propriétaires restent plus longtemps dans les entreprises.
Dal punto di vista salariale,
ce type d'offre offre un avantage de sérénité face à...
una buena herramienta de atracción de talentos.
Beaucoup plus d'énergie. Ce temps.
Merci François, and thank you very much. We have now heard.
Merci François.
Local and regional government perspective. We have heard also the business perspective, but also there's a lot of research that's pointing to the role of academia, the role of good universities, the role of research centers as poles of attraction for people in regions. And it's my pleasure to turn to Paolo Veneri, who is a professor of economic policy at the Gran Sasso Science Institute in Italy. And my question to you is, you're both an expert in regional development, and you have worked significantly on the post-disaster strategy for L'Aquila Abruzzi after the earthquake that struck the area in 2009, and now you are a professor there in this Gran Sasso Institute. Could you please tell us what are the actions that have been taken to attract and retain students and researchers there, including the housing solutions on the line that Francois was highlighting? And according to your experience, what are the main challenges that the good practices to make higher education institutions a magnet for the attraction of people in places that have suffered difficulties not just because of being peripheral, but also because of, in the case of L'Aquila, the whole earthquake and the destruction that it caused. So, Paolo, the floor is yours, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Andres. First of all, I think the first thing that I should highlight is that I work for an institution which is very young and created in a specific context that was not only a post-disaster place, but it was, in a sense, a city that could be seen already as a knowledge city. So I work in a very special academic institution, which is a small school of PhD students in 4 areas, which is social sciences, physics, mathematics, and computer sciences. But this institution was placed in a city where there was already quite a large university, and especially the very renowned Gran Sasso National Laboratories for nuclear physics, which is a very special place. So it was a knowledge city, and within this situation, in this specific context, this small school of advanced studies had a specific, let's say, strength of attraction for very selected in specific areas, let's say the STEM plus social sciences, for a small number of PhD students, which were attracted there by several, let's say, aspects that are related both to the, let's say, the characteristics of the school and the characteristics of the place, and the two were connected, as I was saying. Regarding the school, of course, that was a specific context of international students. Consider that half of the students are not from Italy, are from other countries. The official language is English, and they are in a situation which they are put, let's say, in condition to have a very let's say, good experience of studying in a context in which they don't have to think about housing, for example, because given that they are only a small number of students, about 40 students per year, let's say they can count on the institution providing for them a specific place in the historical city center, which is also where the center is located, in which they can have rooms and spend all the time of their PhD there. So I think this is an important point. In a context where, in any case, the housing affordability is not the most pressing challenge because of, let's say, after, let's say, now almost 15 years after the earthquake, now the city center is almost entirely reconstructed, and there is it's a small city, it's not the most congested one, and therefore there is supply of housing without being, let's say, in the situation of other very large cities. The other point connects to the attractiveness of the city in connection with the school, which I think one important point to highlight, in a sense, that the strategy of this school was that to be very much designed to be in that context, in that type of knowledge city. And from the foundation, from the creation of this center, there was a strong mission, as a sort of third mission for the center, which was that of contributing to the local environment by generating network, by connecting, let's say, the city and the citizens to the network and the results of the research produced by the academics there. For example, last week there was a big conference of economists, the National Conference of Economists, which was organized there, and that brought lots of people there and creates a sort of vibe and let's say an environment which is rich and vibrant. I think this is repeated because the institutions are connected and are kind of they have a central position in the research network that pays off, I think, in terms of attractiveness. I stop here since I've taken 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Paolo. And now we have this interactive moment in which we expect questions from the audience. So I don't think there's a question at the moment, so I'll just place the first question. But please bring in your questions, bring in your ideas. Don't wait until the very last minute, because I think we have heard 4 very nice, very sharp interventions. And we want to hear what you're thinking, and we want to hear your questions. But let me just pose a question and ask a question to especially Hannah, because we have heard 4 interventions that have put the emphasis on the young, and rightly so. We have to bring talent and we have to bring energy, we have to bring new ideas, and attracting the young through housing, through research institutions, through specific areas like, for example, improving participation, accessible transport, etc., is absolutely fundamental. But we see that in many of these places, we have immigration of people that are middle-aged or older, and they are experienced and talented. What is it that Hannah PTO is putting together to actually not just attract these people, but also make sure that these people contribute significantly to the development of PTO in northern Sweden? Thank you.
Yes, so exactly. And I would also like to highlight that even though you are middle-aged, it doesn't really matter, because I would say the most important part is that you are willing to be a part of a new society, even though you're an English speaker or a Swedish speaker. But I would say that the city or the municipalities has a great responsibility. It is very easy to do as we did before, to say that we have a lack of workforce and we need these skills. We don't really have a lack of workforce if you look into the world, right? We have a lot of people who would be able to move in, but the municipality has, and the employers have to accept English speakers at different workplaces. It is impossible to find enough workforce in Sweden, particularly in North Sweden. So I would say it's the other way around. We can attract as much as we'd like to and want to.
Naturalmente, o que eu acho é que se nós não conseguirmos ter estas capacidades.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. I don't know whether Marie, Paolo, or Francois want to intervene very briefly on this. So if not, I'm going to pass the floor to Maya, who has a... Oh, sorry, Marie, I just moved too fast, so please go ahead.
No, that's fine, absolutely. Thank you so much, Hannah. I think your presentation is so interesting to hear all about this. And I think also when it comes to attracting like older people or middle-aged people, I think that's, you know, that's also important. They're still part of the workforce, as you say, and they might also be producing the future workforce again. So, I mean, they are there also to create that kind of those happy early memories. So it's all systemic. It all kind of fits together. And this point about, you know, being able to provide like let people actually to work even if they speak English instead of Swedish, I think is a super crucial point. I just wanted to re-emphasize it.
Okay, I do welcome very much this idea of trying to bring all types of population that can adapt and create a new community. I think this is fundamental. But Maya, you have a poll for all of us to make it as interactive as possible. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andres, and thank you to all the speakers. So now it's time for a poll that you should appear. It should appear in your screen now. If you don't see the complete question, just please enlarge the box that appears in your screen. So please, for all the audience and the speakers, the first question will be, in your opinion, what is the most important factor for attracting talent to lagging territories? Please choose one, maximum 2 responses for the most important factors in attracting talent. 1, affordable and accessible housing, providing cultural activities and amenities, demonstrating the environmental quality of a certain territory, air, water, energy, or demonstrate the institutional quality with governance, political stability, government effectiveness, or drive a diverse and inclusive society. So please vote now. We are receiving all the answers. We will just wait a couple of seconds. 2 seconds more. And I will be closing the poll now. We will have the answer soon. As you will see, the first and most important factor is the affordable and accessible housing for all of you. So thank you very much for this call. And Andres, I will give the floor to you again.
Thank you very much, Maya. And that was an interesting sort of result, but I saw that there were a lot of other answers, 3 of them at 1/3. So there are multiple factors that seem to influence the attraction of talent. But in order for that talent to come, you also need investors. Investors need talent, and talent needs investors. So we're going to move to that part of the discussion where we discuss how we look at how to attract investors. And first, let's start by the regional and local governance dimension. And it's our pleasure to have Juliana Cardoso with us. She's the Deputy Secretary of Economic Development of the state of Sao Paulo. And of course, we all know Sao Paulo as one of the largest metropolis in the world, but the state of Sao Paulo is far beyond the city of Sao Paulo, and there's significant differences and inequalities within the state, with rural areas, some of them relatively remote and less dynamic, but also a lot of intermediate cities that have become some of the poles of development of the whole of Brazil. So my question to you, Juliana, is how is the regional government trying to achieve a better balance in terms of attractiveness by helping the less attractive areas of the state with initiatives that are aimed at attracting more investment and more firms, more investors? And do these strategies allow to guarantee compliance with the sustainable development?
Contribuem para aquilo que são os objetivos do desenvolvimento sustentável. Portanto, Juliana tem a palavra, disponha. Muito obrigado a todos. É para mim um grande prazer estar aqui. Em primeiro lugar, para contextualizar.
That São Paulo represents around 30% of the whole Brazil's GDP, which is around 27% of the consumer market. Last semester, we created here in Brazil 276,000 jobs, and 30% was here in the state of São Paulo. But besides and despite this, all this huge economic things that we have 645 cities where 147 has less than 5,000 people, and 397 cities has a population under 50,000 people. That's why I want to share a little bit more about what we are doing regarding promoting better economical solutions for those cities. Another important thing is if we split the state of São Paulo in 16 regions, we consider only 4 of them, the metropolitan region of São Paulo, metropolitan region of Campinas, São José dos Campos, and Sorocaba. All of them together represents around 80% of the whole state is São Paulo's GDP. So if we are looking for different areas and how to help them to improve opportunities or to create jobs or to improve their economical matrix, it's important to look for another thing. São Paulo has a huge infrastructure. We do have like 18 out of 20 of the best roads in Brazil. We do have 27 different airports, regional airports. We do have the port of Santos, which is the largest complex. We do have rail system, but talking about infrastructure and this huge infrastructure that we have in the state, we have asked for the investor, why don't you go for those areas and how we can help you to go for those areas. It's difficult to find out the best portion because if we are looking for those areas, we have so many and multiple possibilities. So we have agribusiness, we have also tourism, we have culture and sports. We have so many to explore. So most of the mayors, actually, they are kind of trying to figure out how they can implement and how they can improve their economical reality. So that's why we've been working on different situations. So first of all, even though we do have this huge infrastructure, we have to improve it. and try to help them with logistics, with so many other possibilities. Third, we've been asking for the entrepreneur people who are in the territory where and they're willing to invest in. So to create new possibilities to explore, so as a health pole and a health zone, so as agribusiness, as I mentioned before, and we are asking for people who are investing. And third, we are trying to connect those people and creating some sort of huge amount of people relating with each other in order to promote businesses. So we are connecting cities among a radius of 50 kilometers and trying to connect everything that is in the supply chain for them and trying to put together in the region. So I have talked about some of our possibilities and what we are working on. We do have several, but I think I have passed my 3 minutes, but I have so many other strategies that we are working. But most of them is talking with the people who are investing already in the territory and connected them with the different regions and with different people from the supply chain to attract people and to invest in infrastructure for them.
So thank you very much. Connecting already existing investment and putting it in places that are nearby makes a difference. But let's move to the other side of the world. And in many cases, we are all envious of what has happened in Ireland, that has shot from being a relatively less developed country within the European Union to now be in the second richest region in the world. And even there, many of the peripheral areas of Ireland, like the northwest of Ireland, are doing considerably well and attracting or capable of generating innovation and attracting cutting-edge firms. So we are now with Michelle Conahan, who is the Regional Manager of Investment Promotion in Ireland, in the Ireland Northwest region. And my question to you, Michelle, is how does the Northwest region achieve such fantastic results in terms of innovation and attracting of cutting-edge firms, especially when, as many of us know, in Ireland, infrastructure is a challenge, there's peripherality. And how do you help to ensure that these investments serve the broader objectives of the regions to raise living standards and support linkages with domestic firms? How do you make sure that this permeate to the investments, actually permeate to the rest of the economy of your region?
Thank you. Yeah, and so for some context, the border region, which the Northwest is part of, is one of the most challenging regions in Ireland for investment. Yes, the agency has been very successful, and now we count 1,800 clients across all sectors as FDI clients within our portfolio. And for every 10 jobs that we create in FDI, we estimate that there are 8 indirect jobs. Now, when you look at the Northwest, it's a much smaller piece of that pie. So for some context, so yes, we're successful as a country, and yes, infrastructure is certainly challenging and one of our biggest challenges in the Northwest. We have 56 clients in this region. So there are 3 counties. We have a population size of about 270,000 within those 3 counties, and a wider catchment area of about 600,000. So in our 56 companies, they employ about 8,000 people. And I'm pleased to say we have a mix of 50% services, 50% manufacturing. And it's a real story of the underdog, I guess, in the Northwest. You know, we have some of the world's top medtech and pharma and financial services companies in the region, but they're here for the last 20 years. So it's been really important, that relationship development piece, but also transformation to ensure the stickiness to the region, but also, to your point, Andreas, to move from up the value chain to increase the kind of economic development.
Aumentar as ligações em termos também da cadeia de abastecimento e promover o crescimento económico e têm sido necessárias, claro, transformações para conseguir estes resultados. Em termos de infraestruturas, eu diria que há a percepção e há a realidade.
With IDA before being in the regional role,
I'm originally from the region as well, and regional development is quite important personally. And I guess looking at what are our assets. So looking at, you know, what clusters do we have? What track record do we have? But one of the biggest things was the visuals that were being presented to market the county by our stakeholders were all about quality of life and all about surfboards and cliffs. As my team will say, don't mention surfboards and cliffs to Michelle. Like, I really wanted to convey a message of economic density, activity, innovation. And so one of the most simplest and most effective pieces of collateral that we created was to create a map that showed the FDI ecosystem in the region. And people suddenly went, wow, I'm not going to be on a lovely beach by myself as an investor. There's actually multinationals from across the globe here. So I think looking at your assets and making the most of those, activating your local leaders, making sure that all of your stakeholders are on the one page, and continue to advocate and influence towards positive discrimination from an infrastructure perspective. Because from a population perspective, we'll never make the business case for those big infrastructure investments, but we do want to strive towards a reasonable area of competitiveness. And we continue to work with our sister agency to increase linkages between SMEs, domestic SMEs, and the multinationals through a body of work and various different programs. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Michelle. And I think through what Juliana has said and what you said, we have emphasized the need to work with businesses as local governments and regional governments in order to make sure that this is mutually beneficial for the population and those investors. So let's bring in the business perspective, and I'm going to bring in Ines Amenabar, who is Responsible Development Manager at Pantaleon Group in Guatemala. And Pantaleon is, for those of you that don't know it, is a big company caring about the quality of the environment and inclusion, not just in Guatemala, but also with businesses in Mexico and other countries in Latin America. And my question to you, Ines, is could you build on a specific example where you are developing an attractive, inclusive, and sustainable place, and how is Pantaleon going about doing it? So the floor is yours, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Andres. And just for some context, the Pantaleon Group is a Guatemalan family-owned conglomerate with over 174 years of operations in 6 countries with over 18,000 employees. And the group's vision has sustainability at its core, with promoting development, transforming resources responsibly. And in this case, how we're doing that is we're looking to transform the city of Escuintla in Guatemala. This used to be a sugar mill. So we used to have a Concepcion mill, our sugar factory there, but operational complexities, the growth of the proximity of the city to this location really made it unfeasible to continue operating there. And although we had a very difficult decision of closing this operation, we had this vision of what the future could look like. And that's where we're creating this Synergy Industrial Park. The Synergy Industrial Park is a 15-year development of over 4,700 hectares. And this is going to be a mixed-use project that will develop housing, commerce, logistics, tax-free zones, and other mixed uses to diversify the area, create jobs, and drive growth of an important intermediate city for the country. Overall, we think that this project will generate around 20,000 jobs in the next 15 years. But we're starting with the first phase, which is a project around $15 million to create Synergy Industrial Park. This is going to be an industrial park that covers 500 hectares. And it has already, just this year, attracted over $14 million in investments. But this is where our key challenges come in on how do we attract investors to this region, and also how do we prepare this region for change. And the first thing that we're doing is that the design of Synergy Industrial Park is aiming to promote a sustainable and inclusive space. We are registered to pursue the LEED campus certification. This means that we will be promoting the responsible use of water, energy, waste, and vegetation. Our current commitments include we've designated over 1 million square feet for conservation. We've also modified the design to reduce our impacts on nature, for example, changing street layouts to prevent having to cut down a tree. and also closing our loops on water use. This is a region that has high water availability, but we want to make sure that the park has the infrastructure in place that if anyone uses this water, we make sure that this water is returned at the same or even better parameters. And we're also promoting alternative and inclusive models of transportation within the park, including bike lanes and wide sidewalks. But we also understand that this will require a lot of coordination and joint investments with the region. And this is why we're supporting and investing in the mesas de competitividad local, which are the local competitiveness tables. These spaces seek to promote the potential growth ecosystem of intermediate cities following the National Competitiveness Plan. And the methodology, what it does is that it's try to coordinate efforts among different stakeholders locally to strengthen that growth ecosystems. And we're also working with the local government to support those local macro infrastructure projects that are needed to attract people to come to Escuintla. And obviously, the more difficult part is participating in these national public policy discussions to support big infrastructure projects that are needed to attract people to the country. This includes investments in ports, major highways, and overall promoting that national economic competitive strategy, which changes with governments and making sure that this can stay in the long term. And I think overall in the long term, we really understand that talent is going to be a key driver to support this project. And we need to generate partnerships with universities, technical skills, and we're even looking at elementary schools to prepare people for these future jobs and preventing migration not only within the country to the outside the country, but also within the country to other major cities. How do we attract people to stay in these intermediate cities?
Thank you very much, Ines. We are running slightly behind, but we got questions, so I don't think we can avoid the questions. And I'm going to go very quickly to them, so I want, please, very short answers. The first one is by Richard Tufts, and it goes to Michelle. The question is, does the northwest of Ireland have a smart specialization strategy? And how far is inter-regional collaboration outside the region important within Ireland or outside Ireland?
Thank you. So yes, there is a smart specialization strategy at a national level. How that's going to be implemented at a regional level is still a work in progress, because we're going to align that with a national clustering policy, which is due for publication at the end of the year. So yes, I think we'll see a lot more in the year ahead. From the perspective of collaboration, it's particularly important in this region because we border Northern Ireland. So there's a lot of collaboration happening under what's called a shared island initiative. So we're seeing a lot of collaboration around research and development and opportunities, but also there's an educational collaboration happening. And a cross-border worker talent pool is part of our value proposition here, particularly for Donegal and Derry. So that is particularly important as well. So I'd say the level of collaboration is very high and it is very important. The exact methodology of how the smart specialization implementation will happen will be a lot clearer in the year ahead.
Okay, before we go to the next question, I have the academic perspective with Graziella Luisi, who is the director of the University of Corsica's foundation, Università di Corsica Pasquale, in France. The OECD work on regional attractiveness has shown that universities play a significant role in attracting talent and investors due to their capacity to act as knowledge brokers. Can you briefly explain what motivated the creation of the foundation of the University of Corsica, and how can it contribute to attract investment to the island, especially in Ireland, that in the past has not performed that well relative to the rest of France? So Graziella, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Oui, merci. Merci pour cette question et merci également pour votre invitation. Donc, moi, je vais parler, alors peut-être pour recontextualiser, la fondation de l'Université de Corse est une fondation universitaire, donc qui a essentiellement pour vocation d'accompagner en fait nos étudiants. Alors, nos étudiants, on est une petite université, hein, l'Université de Corse, c'est 5000 étudiants, la population corse, c'est 330 000 habitants. Donc voilà, on est une petite île au regard de l'Irlande tout à l'heure. Ce que je voudrais dire, c'est que la vocation en fait de cette fondation universitaire, c'est eh bien d'accompagner, alors en partie, c'est pas sa seule vocation, mais une de ses vocations, c'est d'accompagner l'entrepreneuriat innovant en Corse, notamment à travers un soutien aux projets portés par des étudiants ou par des jeunes diplômés. Donc, on a un dispositif structuré en fait d'accompagnement de ces porteurs de projets, des concours pour leur permettre eh bien d'être soutenus financièrement. Donc, ça s'adresse pas qu'aux étudiants ou aux jeunes diplômés qui sont de notre université, mais également à des étudiants ou des jeunes diplômés qui sont extérieurs à la Corse, mais qui auraient des projets à forte valeur ajoutée pour la Corse. Donc, c'est intéressant parce que eh bien, ça permet d'attirer aussi des talents qui sont à l'extérieur de la Corse et qui, par ce dispositif, eh bien, vont revenir en Corse et vont être accompagnés en Corse. On a développé ce dispositif d'accompagnement depuis à peu près 6 ans, c'est sa 6e édition cette année. On voit maintenant les effets que ça peut avoir en termes de relocalisation eh bien de projets en Corse. Ce sont des projets qui viennent en Corse grâce à ces concours que nous lançons, mais qui ensuite vont être accompagnés par d'autres acteurs en Corse, comme des incubateurs ou des fonds d'investissement. Ils viennent dans une phase d'amorçage grâce au soutien qu'on peut leur apporter, mais ensuite, eh bien, on va les retrouver dans toute la chaîne en fait de valeur concernant eh bien l'accompagnement à l'entrepreneuriat innovant et l'accompagnement à l'innovation en Corse. Donc voilà en fait ce qu'on peut dire sur ces actions au sein de la Fondation de l'Université de Corse.
Nesta atmosfera de inovação.
Peut-être la question je trouve que ça correspond aussi au sujet d'aujourd'hui qui est effectivement la question de l'attractivité. Aujourd'hui, nous avons aussi lancé une chaire, ça fait maintenant 2 ans, qui travaille sur les questions d'attractivité. Nous avons mené un certain nombre d'études sur aussi le lien entre attractivité et bien-être. Et on s'aperçoit qu'aujourd'hui, à l'échelle de la Corse est une île donc avec forcément des ressources limitées, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, 330 000 habitants, donc ça veut dire des ressources limitées, des ressources humaines limitées, des ressources naturelles limitées. Et donc, cette question de attractivité et bien-être, elle nous semblait intéressante. On voit aujourd'hui que la question du bien-être forcément impacte l'attractivité, mais aussi la question de l'attractivité impacte le bien-être et qu'il peut y avoir des tensions aussi entre ces deux approches. Donc, nous, ce qu'on a pu relever dans le cadre des travaux qu'on a menés dans le cadre de cette chaire, eh bien, c'est que finalement, le bien-être peut être aussi une façon de réguler aussi l'attractivité territoriale. Ça nous semblait intéressant. Et que lorsqu'on parle aussi d'attractivité territoriale, eh bien, il faut regarder le niveau de granularité aussi géographique sur lequel on travaille. C'est-à-dire que est-ce qu'on travaille à l'échelle d'une région? Est-ce qu'on travaille à l'échelle d'une commune? Est-ce qu'on travaille à l'échelle d'une intercommunalité? Et ces approches-là, elles sont intéressantes parce qu'on ne retrouve pas forcément les mêmes résultats en termes de perception de l'attractivité ou du bien-être. Voilà ce que je voulais dire. Alors, je ne sais pas, j'ai peut-être un peu débordé sur la question qui avait été posée, mais ça me semblait intéressant aussi de vous restituer ces premiers travaux que nous avons menés dans le cadre de cette chaire. Voilà.
Well, no, thank you very much. I think you covered it very well and went beyond, which I think is always very exciting. And you highlighted this link between well-being and attractiveness and this mutual interaction, which is coming very clearly from all the interventions. The questions from the audience, I think that Juliana Cardoso, there was a question from Fabrizio Ramirez. She has answered the question in detail in the chat, so I will encourage you to look at the chat, as has Michelle Gonahan done with a question by Richard Tuff. So Maya, the floor is yours, and please go to the poll now.
Thank you. Yes, it's time for a second poll. A quick poll that I will launch now, as we want to hear from the audience. The question being, what do you consider to be the most important factor in attracting investors? So please choose one or two of the most important factors in attracting investors. Land availability, access to transport infrastructure, access to broadband, availability of skills and competencies, and the presence of other firms. So please vote now. We will wait a couple of seconds. Your answers are coming in. And just one more second. We want to hear from all the audience. Please vote. Okay, I will close the poll now. And you will see quite clear, showing the results, that of course, the availability of skills and competencies is very important factor for attracting investors. Thank you very much, Andres. Now, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. That's a bit of a surprise because most of the research coming on this and to a certain extent highlights the role of infrastructure as well. But having said that, talent is fundamental. And now we move to the third dimension, and the dimension that comes third could have come first because there's that of attracting visitors. If you want to attract talent and you want to attract investors, you have to bring people into your region. You have to offer and see what, allow them to see what the region offer and make sure that whether you are in the northwest of Ireland or you're in northern Norway or you are in Corsica, they look at the natural beauty, they look at the heritage sites, and they decide this is a place where I would like to live. This is a place where I can see my future developing. This is a place where I would like to invest. But there are trade-offs because if you bring too many visitors, there might be pressures on the environment, there might be pressures on local housing, etc., that might also tip the whole process over the limit. So let's bring in our sets of practitioners and experts, and the first person I would like to invite is Jorge Ortega, who is the Director General of the National Association of Mexican World Heritage Cities. And he deals with an association that has quite a few UNESCO heritage sites, cities, and some are very popular tourist destinations, while most of them are not located in tourist spots, but inland or less accessible to visitors. So Jorge, my question to you is, what are the association and the cities doing to meet the twofold challenge of, on the one hand, attracting visitors to help development, but also to preserve the environment and the local culture? Have you observed any changes recently in the choice of tourists in these parts of Mexico? So Jorge, the floor is yours and you have 3 minutes.
Muchas gracias. La verdad es que es muy interesante la pregunta. La Organización Mundial del Turismo ha identificado precisamente a la inscripción en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial de UNESCO como la más potente para atraer turistas. Sin embargo, debo de comentar que en México, a pesar de ser el cuarto país en número de ciudades inscritas en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, solamente detrás de Italia, de España y de Francia, aún tiene mucho potencial para crecer de manera ordenada en precisamente hacer la mejor oferta y conservar el medio ambiente. Hay ciudades que son una maravilla, que tienen estos valores universales excepcionales que ha identificado precisamente UNESCO y que son poco conocidos a nivel internacional. Por ejemplo, preguntaría yo aquí a todos los participantes si han visitado o conocen Guanajuato o si o si conocen Zacatecas, ¿no? Son ciudades que son identificadas por un valor universal excepcional, único, irrepetible en el mundo y que poca gente conoce. Conocen Cancún, pero las playas están ya agotadas, el turismo de playas. Y es que nuestro país, a diferencia de países como Italia, que sufren precisamente de ese sobreturismo, nosotros estamos en un momento ideal para poder organizar adecuadamente el turismo y sobre todo atraer turismo, talentos, inversiones aquí a nuestro país a través de una oferta muy ordenada, y estamos precisamente trabajando en los planes de manejo que le llama UNESCO para coordinar a todos los actores que viven de la actividad productiva de nuestras ciudades, patrimonio mundial. Estamos organizando eventos fuera también de los centros históricos para que desde este momento haya atractivos interesantes en los monumentos y toda la actividad cultural en los centros históricos, pero también afuera de los centros históricos dentro de esas mismas ciudades para poder permear en todas las comunidades que viven del turismo cultural en nuestros centros históricos. A la vez estamos organizando muchos festivales a lo largo de todo el año para evitar esos picos que sí los tenemos. Por ejemplo, próximamente vienen las fiestas del Día de Muertos, que son muy interesantes, atraen muchos visitantes, tanto nacionales como internacionales, así es que estamos impulsando todo ese tipo de acciones para poder ampliar la oferta. Las industrias creativas, nuestras ciudades patrimonio mundial, también son ciudades creativas por UNESCO, así es que hay mucha oferta en todo lo que se trata de audiovisuales, creadores, diseñadores, artesanos, gastronomía. Y en la asociación lo que estamos haciendo es dar más visibilidad en conjunto a todas estas ciudades mexicanas patrimonio mundial, a sus productores locales. Estamos impulsando al emprendimiento también a través de la visibilidad. Son muchas las pymes que viven de la actividad turística en nuestras ciudades patrimonio mundial. Son pymes familiares, así es que estamos trabajando con ellos. En tema de calidad ambiental, todos estos planes de manejo que comento también están trabajando con más ciclovías, con lo que es la revegetación también en nuestras ciudades. Oaxaca ahorita está impulsando lo que es el proyecto de la ciudad esponja, está ya trabajando en este aspecto, que es todo el tema precisamente pues de revegetar, de poder aprovechar muy bien toda la lluvia que cae, evitar inundaciones y también poder de alguna manera rehabilitar el ecosistema aprovechando y reutilizando esa agua de lluvias. Es que son muchas las acciones, pero repito, creo que estamos en un momento donde contamos con infraestructura turística y infraestructura cultural muy amplia, muy vasta en todas estas ciudades poco conocidas todavía, así es que pues vamos a seguir trabajando en una planeación ordenada. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Jorge. And we can see that in the case of Mexico, there's still significant potential to actually bring in more tourists that can generate this sort of dynamism for many of the cities and the wonderful cities that you have in Mexico. But you have to work together, like in all other areas, with the private sector and with businesses. And it's now my pleasure to bring in Cristina Cisa Vieira, who is the Executive Vice President of the Hotel Association of Portugal. And my question to you is related to what is happening in terms of hotel delivery and locations of people. Because the OECD in its report has shown, and in many other pieces of research, that environmental quality is a fundamental driver to visitors. It's an asset. And from your perspective, from the Hotel Association of Portugal, can you please tell us, from your point of view, if visitors are still going to the same places, even if they perceive that there's a threat to the environment, or whether you have noticed there's a shift or increasing shift to areas that were traditionally less frequented before, but where there might be less tourist density, less pollution, less risk to the ecosystems. And how does the Association of Hotels in Portugal actively participate in this shift, if at all? So, Cristina, the floor is yours, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will change to my beautiful language to give the interpreters the opportunity also to speak Portuguese. Andrés, esta é de facto uma pergunta.
Indeed, this is a 360-degree question. It's not only a matter of pollution or its impact, but rather having an integrated and comprehensive view of how tourism and hotel industry can be involved in environment and take up its responsibilities. We know that tourism is going to be a victim of climate changes more than being an actor or a criminal. It's going to be a victim. We know that global warming and climate change has an impact both in North and Southern Europe.
Brutalmente, isto já se está a verificar em termos de acesso ao mercado financeiro, em termos gerais, quer banca, quer seguros, a avaliação do risco ambiental, reputacional, da localização, dos incêndios, dos picos de temperatura. Há um reshuffle, de facto, no turismo, e já durante a pandemia se tinha verificado nos períodos de abertura que a preocupação com regiões menos poluídas, com menos carga turística, eram as mais procuradas. Sem embargo, sem prejuízo disso, as cidades continuam em Portugal a ter uma demanda muitíssimo grande e, portanto, também há esta preocupação acrescida. Portugal é totalmente dependente do transporte aéreo, logo aí, nesta ponta ocidental da Europa, significa que efetivamente também trazemos necessariamente para quem vem usufruir do nosso turismo uma pegada também. A hotelaria ela própria está muitas vezes jusante de tudo quanto é a produção destes impactos. A preocupação é com a cadeia de valor e com as cadeias de abastecimento, com a ligação à comunidade, com a preocupação de facto em give back, em poder não só mitigar a produção direta de impactos, mas compensar a produção indireta. O turismo de Portugal tem um programa.
L'Organisation du tourisme au Portugal a un programme important, le tourisme 360, para que las empresas también puedan unirse al reporte de los impactos, para que estén más atentos respecto a lo que es su futuro.
Futuro obbligo. Spaventa molto se pensiamo che in questo momento gli obblighi di reporto
fez aprovar, não estão preparadas para o nosso tecido económico constituído maioritariamente por PMEs. E, de facto, corremos risco de pensar que isto é tão avassalador, este tsunami legislativo, é tão avassalador que nem sequer, no fundo, walk the walk as empresas estão preparadas para fazer. É necessário descodificar e envolvê-las mais, e é esse alerta que a Associação da Hotelaria de Portugal também tem feito junto das instâncias públicas. Obrigada.
Well, obrigado. Thank you very much. I thought you raised a whole issue and turned the question around, which is also very nice that you highlighted that on the one hand, tourism can shape the environment, but the environment can shape tourism and it has to adapt. And how do we get this program of 360? But let's go now to our last, the last but not least speaker, who is from the world of academia, to bring this academia perspective, who is Tara Duncan, who is a professor of tourism from Dalarna University in Sweden. And we are going to talk about the whole issue of Dalarna, which is a place in Sweden that is very popular for its tourist assets. Why, Tara, why was the Center of for Tourism and Leisure Research created in Dalarna, and how has it helped the region move forwards towards a more sustainable tourist sector and a resilient and attractive place? Has it really made that much of a difference? So Tara, the floor is yours and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I think the first thing to say is that we are a very interdisciplinary group, and we very quickly realized that we had a role to play in facilitating and communicating research to the tourism sector and regional stakeholders. But more importantly, we had a role to play in working with them to help answer questions around development, attractiveness, and sustainability. And that led to us trying to figure out how to work closely with industry, with the sector, and help them figure out some solutions, or also understand a global perspective on some of the issues that they were facing. So, for instance, we currently have some projects around rural transport and looking at both visitor but local use of rural transport. And we've used a participatory method, PPGIS, public participation GIS, to really try and get a spatial planning look at this so that both the region, the sector, and research can focus on it. We're also doing some research on sustainability around food, looking at how climate change and food interact, and helping restaurants reduce food waste. We've also got projects around helping small communities look at ways to provide accommodation for visitors. So we're really focusing on how research can integrate into local communities to help them understand and promote the attractiveness of regions. So back to your question of, are we having an impact? I think we are. We're now 6 years old, and we see this very much as a long-term strategy and process, building lasting and meaningful relationships with the tourism sector and regional stakeholders, so that we have this longer, wider understanding of how research and what's going on in our communities can work together. And that actually links to many of the issues that were brought up today, both about attracting investors, talent, and visitors, when we're talking about housing, when we're talking about entrepreneurial environments, supportive regional and national governments, good quality public services, attractive cultural and leisure activities. So all of those things we've been talking about really resonate with what we are trying to do when we're working with the local stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Tara, and that was very, very quick. So now we can, before we move to the concluding parts, we can move to the questions. There was a question that appeared from an anonymous attendee that I'm going to pose, or I'm going to ask to all of you, is how do you consider the trend to open industrial plants to visitors? I mean, was not aware that this was a trend, but do you think that economic tourism can also become a solution for industrial areas? I know that Jorge has already replied, but Jorge, if you want to start in person, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I wanted to say that in terms of heritage, industrial heritage is very important, and of course to give new uses to these old plants, abandoned plants, to reconvert the use, like galleries, art galleries maybe, or cultural centers that has been done all over the world, and that's an interesting way to reconvert. But I'm not familiar with the terms of actual current plants that are giving, that are in use.
Anyone else wants to intervene? Yes, Tara, please go ahead.
I can perhaps make a very quick comment, and it's looking more, but we're also working with, through Erasmus Plus projects, on sort of blended integrated learning, bringing students from other universities, both to Dalarna but to other places, looking at mining heritage and looking at how the mining industry has an impact on our landscape and on our communities. And these are ways to learn from each other and yet integrate that sort of economic tourism, perhaps we could call it, with some of the mining and cultural heritage of the area.
And if I can extend the question a bit to perhaps Michelle. Michelle highlighted the whole idea of using the density of multinational firms and investments as a way to attract infrastructure. Can it not be used as a way to attract new investors? Is it investment already generating additional investment, or is it you reach a limit and that's it?
No, you've always got to be looking to diversify. And I mean, we're looking to win new investment and sustain investment with existing investors. And by virtue of having clusters of companies, they will attract others. But we have to look for new companies that have never looked at a regional location before, and that takes time, and the life cycle of an FDI investment is not something that all stakeholders understand. So explaining that to our stakeholders are very important, because an investment in a new name, in a new activity in a region could happen in 6 months, or it could take 16 years. So there's a lot of patience and there's a lot of relationship development happening during that time, as well as the incentives, the placemaking, the research and innovation development as well.
Thank you very much. I think we can now move to Maya for the last poll of the session before we go to the concluding comments. So Maya, the floor is yours.
Of course, we have now here our third and last poll. I know you were all waiting for it. Please see the question here. As a visitor, what is the most important factor you consider when choosing a destination? Again, please choose one or maximum 2 of the most important factors in attracting visitors. This could be the price and cost of the travel, a place or places that are not frequently visited, a region with patrimony or specific cultural or natural amenities, the variety of leisure services, and a destination close to home. So please vote. We will be receiving your answers. Answers are coming in. Just a little second more. We want to hear from everybody in the audience. A few minutes just to close the poll. And if you have all voted, I will end the poll now. Et voilà. We have that the patrimony or specific cultural or natural amenities is, as a visitor, the most important factor. So Andres, this was the third poll, so back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have had a fruitful, very, very fruitful workshop in which we heard from 11 people from civil society, from government, from business, from academia, all together presenting different perspectives. And the question is, what have we learned? What are the key takeaways that we can take from this? And I think one is crucial, that we need to make our places, the places where we live, attractive. And in order to make them attractive, we have to work with what we have, but improve it. And the axes are different. We have to improve the infrastructure, both the physical infrastructure, but also the telecommunications infrastructure, which is absolutely fundamental in a world in which we are all increasingly, and many people are working on a permanent basis from home in remote places, where we're no longer tied to a desk in a room where we have to share with a lot of other people, but we can do it in different places at different times. We need to invest in talent, and that came out very, very clearly. Invest in local talent, but also to attract other talent. We need to invest in bringing in business and all type of investment that will in turn attract other businesses and transform and help local businesses become far more efficient and far more competitive. We need to invest in improving the institutional quality, and also we need to invest in issues like, for example, the local ecosystem, both from a physical perspective, but also from a social perspective and cultural perspective, creating the places that will actually become attractive to visitors, to talent, to investors, but that will create also the memories that would actually pin people to a particular place, as Mari was saying at the very beginning. But this is something that is not going to happen as if by magic. So there's a need for intervention. And I think you have put it all very clear that one actor alone, government alone, cannot deliver this, that we need to have this combination of government with business, with civil society, and with academia and research centers to work together in what people working on innovation will call a triple or quadruple helix sort of approach. What I would call is generating the right synergies, because this is mutually beneficial. If you have efficient governments, then businesses are going to benefit from that. But if business actually deliver, then governments are going to actually be able to create better conditions for the people that live in those places. And this requires careful planning. It requires careful planning to make sure that we put in evidence the assets that are necessary for our places to become attractive, but also that we have the right mechanisms to get our places noticed in a world in which what we have in this a global environment in which many places are accessible, have become attractive, and in which many places compete for the attraction of potential visitors, investors, and talent. So creating this environment, creating this, let's say, right ecosystem for collaboration among the different sort of stakeholders, if you want, the different sort of actors within a territory is absolutely fundamental, which in order to rethink the regional attractiveness in this no global environment. And in order to do that, we need the will to collaborate, but we also need the right tools. And I mentioned the title before. I would recommend once again that you go back to this report by the OECD on rethinking regional attractiveness in the new global environment, because many of the tools and many of the diagnoses that are there is something that comes very clearly from what you said and would certainly help making the places where you live and where we all work and would like to live far more attractive to visitors, and also to deliver a better quality of life for the citizens that already live there. So without further ado, I would like to thank all of you for your excellent participation, and I'm going to pass the baton now to Claire Charby, who is going to close this workshop.
Thank you very much, Andres, for your moderating role and the very, ambitious and clear conclusion. And thank you to all, speakers, because we really learned in a fast way a series of good practices, and of course we will use them. Why will we use it? Because we will continue working with you. You are part of a kind of community of practice for regional attractiveness topic in the OECD. And, we notice today how complex it is, because it requires the participation and the coordination among different stakeholders, and nothing will happen without the mobilization of these different stakeholders on the ground. Of course, well aligned with national and European, for those who are living in Europe, ambition and orientation. So we will continue working to, make this community of practice lively, and we will collect in a compendium of good practices all the things we learn. So please do not hesitate to continue interacting with us in case you want to promote some good practices, or if you have a question, or please really whatever you place in the world we are interested in. It can concern national, regional, subnational government, as well as businesses and universities and associations. What is important for us is that we have in this community of practitioners. So not only, high-level policy decision makers, but very concrete, active stakeholders. So we will be in touch with you in the future. I will just reiterate what Andres recommended to you, to visit our website, Regions Globalization, and in particular the report. Thanks to the EU, we will continue in the coming years to work with new regions on new topics. So be sure that you will be contacted in the future. And don't forget to answer the survey we sent to you with your, participation link. You will have until the end of this week, so please do not hesitate. So thanks you all, of course, to all speakers, to Andres, a really big thanks for your help. And if I must say also to my very nice and wonderful team, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, good afternoon.
Goodbye.
Good morning for all. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.
Gracias, hasta luego. Chao.
Muchas gracias.
Hasta
Thank
pronto.
you all.
Thanks so much. Bye.